Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day. I want to welcome you back to Top 30 Prog Tracks Part 2. I'm joined again by Mr. Bill Schuster. How's it going, Bill?
Armando. Not bad for this time of day for me.
That's
As
very good.
usual, haven't been to bed yet. So
We will do this as quickly and as painlessly as possible for you because I understand you've been working all night and, you've graciously slotted me in to help me do these episodes. So, it's much appreciated. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what we've done is we've taken a list of our top 30 rock tracks. Now, instead of doing let's say, a Jethro type of progressive rock album in terms of a lengthy episode, we've decided to split this up into three parts. So we've done part one. Sorry for the delay in doing part two, but here we are now, and we're going to give you our top 10 for part two of top 30 prog tracks. So again, I will pass the virtual mic over to Mr. Bill Schuster, and he'll give us his first pick, number one pick, I guess.
thank you, Armando. Okay, just a quick reminder, my list is not by quality. It's not worst to best, best to worst, anything like that. Is by length. I started last episode with the shortest track, which was just under 10 minutes. And the first track this week is 13 minutes and 58 seconds. So we're moving up. Uh,
Hmm.
Back in the 70s, there was a band in Sweden called Kipa. And they stuck around. They were actually, well, probably in these parts, pretty obscure. But in later years, they became more known in these parts because one of their members, Royna Stolt, became pretty big on the modern prog scene, being a founder and main man in the Flower Kings, among others. Uh, Royna and fellow Kaipa member, the founder Hans London, regrouped the band in 2001 with just them and some all new members. This is the second album from that period. It's Keyholder, and the track I want to highlight here was written by Hans and Royna with lyrics by Royna, and it is The End of the Rope. Now, if you want to know what Kaipa sounds like, essentially they have all the classic 70 sounds. Hans has a ton of keyboards and he's a master. He's been
Hmm.
doing this a very long time, obviously, and Royne is well known for his guitar mastery as well. They
Hmm.
also have a couple of vocalists, Alina Gibson, who some say is an acquired taste, though I like her quite a bit, and Patrick Lindstrom from the band Ritual. And those two are still with the band today with Hans, though Royne left not long after here, and he's been gone ever since. With Hans carrying on the legacy. But Into the Rope, though, it always really stuck with me because it it tells a story. Well, as don't all songs tell a story?
Hmm.
The music's great, obviously, but there's a particular line that sticks out for me as a factory worker for so many years, which goes, rise up from the factory floor and walk out the door. That always gets my blood going instantly.
There you go.
Fantasy that I'm not ever going to have happen because I need to get paid.
There you
But
go. There you go.
but
Yeah.
it sounds great when it's playing though. And yeah, check out that cool artwork. This is Inside Out, of course. Modern prog fans know that label well. They've been releasing like 90% of the modern prog albums over the last 25 years.
Hmm.
And more power to them. I'm glad they have been. So yeah, Kaipa, Into the Rope is my first track.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I've just recently discovered Kaipa myself. So interesting. Interesting choice. We're going to go to Italy for my first choice. Again, the build shows his tracks in terms of playing time length. I did not do that. I just threw a bunch of tracks together that I liked, really, in just in no order, but I do know what my number one is. I think Bill knows it too, so we won't go there just yet. Coming in at number 10, I guess you could say, is Museo Rosenbach. They are a progressive rock band from Italy, from their 1973 release. called Zarathustra. The track is called L'ultimo uomo, meaning last man. And a lot of these Italian prog bands, and I'm not coming down harsh on them. Um, when they do their albums, and they did their albums, they basically did in terms of, introductions, parts 1 and 2 and 3 kind of thing. There were no real, and we're going to get to other bands that do that as well. But L'ultimo uomo, again, last man. Uh, Fantastic use of mellotron on this track. It starts off with a nice drum roll and go very dramatic. Almost sounds like a timpani piece happening, but it's not. May just be from the way it sounds. Again, a lot of use of mellotron, very dramatic in terms of keyboards and guitar. Uh, the vocals are coming at such, for me, at a fast pace. I can't really understand what they're saying all the time, but it's a good track nonetheless. That's my first pick at number 10. Isaiah Rosenbach, L'ultimo uomo from Zarathustra from 73.
That is a classic album. Yeah, I like it quite a bit. Though I understand absolutely none of the lyrics. I'm not even going to pretend I understand a bit of it, but that's okay. I treat the vocals in Italian Prague as another instrument, much like death growls in progressive metal and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah, can't do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
The voice is an instrument. So, and the Italian bands do it better than most.
Mhm.
Right. My next one, going back a little bit, this one may or may not be considered prog by some. Some may know this guy from his one big hit in 1977. Some may know him as a recurring character on the animated series King of the Hill. Can you picture him? That's right. It's this guy. It's Chuck Mangione.
Oh my God.
And it's the title track from his double album, Children of Sanchez. Uh, while he was nearing the end of recording for the Feel So Good album, which of course was the big hit he had, um, he was approached to write a movie soundtrack. And he went all out. He had to get it done in 3 weeks. He brought the band together and they got it done. He recorded apparently 23 and a half hours worth of music and turned in 5 hours worth. But this is just it's a double album though. But the track itself, the overture is 14 minutes and 18 seconds.
Oh,
It
sweet
has,
Jesus.
yeah, it's great. I mean, it starts out with a bit of classical guitar, and the guitar on this is played by uh, Grant Geisman or Geisman. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but he was, of course, also famous for playing guitar on Feel So Good. He was part of Chuck's band for a while there. And it starts out with Grant's guitar and vocals, and then it builds bit by bit, and we get all kinds of things. We get like marching band sounds. There are tons of instruments on here. It's like a mixture of jazz, classical, and rock instruments, a variety of horns and percussion instruments. It's big and bold, very movie soundtrack. I mean, which is kind of the point, but you don't require a movie to go along with it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big, bold, over the top piece. And frankly, yeah, Chuck was kind of a joke to a lot of people for various reasons, but he shouldn't be. He was an excellent, excellent musician.
Hmm.
I mean, just ask the late Dizzy Gillespie. I mean, you can't, obviously, unless you're going to get a Ouija board out or something.
Exactly.
But yeah, Dizzy was a friend of the family. And yeah, with a connection like that, I'm going to probably have a little, thoughtful respect.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
I'm gonna
Children of Sanchez Overture.
okay, I'm gonna
And
check
just
that
a
out.
quick, I didn't know about this until 2006 when Eric Norlander, my favorite modern keyboard players, put out Hommage Symphonique, in which he covered 8 classic Prague songs. So he considered this a Prague song. It's right on this with tracks by King Crimson, Jethro Tull, Yes, the obvious Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So
Yep.
yeah,
I'm gonna check that out. Children of Sanchez, right?
Yeah, and you can probably find it cheap. I mean, I got this a few years back for $2 at my local record store.
I'm gonna look for it. Okay. Okay. That's good. And I want to give a quick shout out to those background, all the album covers on the wall. You know, Bill likes to dress for the occasion.
Love the album
Backdrop and all.
covers. Yeah, I
Backdrop and
did.
all.
I took down the classical and jazz I had back there. Figured I'd go with the theme and put some
Yeah,
progressive rock covers up.
exactly. And I want to give a special shout out to the Queen 2 pillow on the back there, but we won't go there. Okay. Um, beautiful, beautiful, stellar. Okay. My next choice coming in at number 9, and if you hear the dogs barking in the background, forgive me. Um, is another Italian band called Il Balletto di Bronzo, which stands for the Bronze Ballet, and their 1973 release Yees, Y-S, pronounced Yees. Now, as I said, a lot of these bands in Italy, when they would do their albums, they would do it in parts. Introductions, part 1, part 2, part 3. And this is no different. The track I chose for from Yeast is Introduzione, which is the introduction piece to the entire album. Again, a lot of use of mellotron, guitars, a lot of use of almost like what I consider to be operatic vocals. And again, if the dogs are barking, if you hear them, my sincere apologies. It's been a crazy day in the house this morning.
It's their homage to Pink Floyd's dogs.
Yes,
They're part of the background.
there you go. There you go. A lot of use of mellotron on these pieces. When I first heard this album, I got this album about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. It is about 2 years ago. And I listened to it in the car one night with Bob. Interesting. Very dramatic, very cinematic. Uh, I was like, you know what? If I dropped a tab of acid, this would make sense, right? Upon first listen. But it's again, it's very grand, very epic, very cinematic. I'd almost say opulent in terms of its production. Fantastic piece of work. All I can say about this album is open your mind and just let any preconceived ideas about Italian prog music go, because even though this is Italian prog, this sort of pushes the limits as to what would be acceptable as prog music, in my opinion. So you have to check this album out. Yees, it's spelled Y-S, Il Balletto di Bronzo. Again, stands for the Bronze Ballet. Fantastic, fantastic. And you can get this on Discogs, most notably, released through Polydor Records. Oh,
Very nice. I'll second that one also.
Mm,
Quite good.
yeah,
I'm glad you're covering so many Italian bands. They absolutely deserve the coverage.
definitely.
That's work.
Definitely.
All right, my next one is part of the Tennessee Prague Mafia. Basically, that's just a term that just popped into my head. There's no such thing actually, but here in the state of Tennessee in the United States, there is a group of musicians and bands who are progressive rock musicians, and they also all have vaguely or not so vaguely Christian slash spiritual themes to much of their work. Glass Hammer is one, Neil Morse is another,
Mhm.
and Salem Hill is also another, and one of my favorites. And in fact, Neil Morse guests on this album, as well as David Ragsdale, former violin player for Kansas. Salem Hill, this is essentially a 4-track album. Uh, Two big epics. One, The Joy Gym, is the mini epic, 15 minutes and 3 seconds. And then one track that's only about 7 minutes long, to give you an idea what we're working with here.
Okay.
This has lots of beautiful keyboard work in here. Neil Morse actually guests on the track just on vocals. He doesn't play any instruments, though he is obviously capable of playing many. But Carl Groves is the main man in Salem Hill. And yeah, if you could get past the title, Mimi's Magic Moment, I associated it with Mariah Carey when it came out because that's
Yeah.
around the time she had the emancipation of Mimi, which is fine
Ma-
because I dig Mariah. So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it seemed
And
odd for a progressive rock band to, yeah, I don't know if it helped their case any.
I know.
But musically, it's magnificent, especially the keyboard work, the beautiful, beautiful keyboard sounds. But lyrically, it's a story. I couldn't even tell you for sure what it's about, but my interpretation essentially it's about some sort of spiritual treasure which has been fought for and hidden and stolen and misinterpreted by people who captured it over the years. They could never unlock its power
Mhm.
until, well, go to the end of the song and you'll find out it's quite a nice, touching ending. It's a nice little story. So,
Perfect.
yeah, Salem Hill, part of the Tennessee Prague Mafia. The Joy Gym.
Perfect. I got to check that out too. You're introducing me to a bunch of stuff I
Yeah,
didn't.
their previous album B is a whole different animal, but also absolutely worth checking out. So
Okay. Okay. I'll get you to send me those names too. My next choice is Jan Ackerman, from his album Tabernacle. This was when he was still with Focus and he was doing both solo career and was with Focus. What to say about this album? Fantastic album, but the track we're going to be focusing on is called Lammy, Lammy. It's a 14-minute, I call it a sweet 14-minute plus, just fantastic. Jan Ackerman, multi-instrumentalist, one of Brian May's heroes, actually. On this track, you have a lot of use of organ, very grand. It starts off very slow, just build and build, and then you have use of organ that come in, choir vocals. And he also uses sitar, so it's very sort of adventurous in its instrumentation. Like multifaceted, but a fantastic piece of work. He would go through his phase through the late 70s where he went into a bit of a disco period when he signed with Atlantic Records. I don't know. But this is a fantastic piece of work. You can get this album separately, or you can on its own, or you can get it through the Jan Ackerman collection, which is a 26 album box set on CD through Red Bullet Music, which I have. Again, that's my next choice, Jan Ackerman with Lammy Sweet in brackets and from Tabernacle.
excellent. All right, I won't go too deep into this next one here because people who are watching this are probably going to know all about this. It's Remember the Future by Nectar. I chose side one, which is part one. It's part one's on the side one of the record. Part two is on side two of the record. Yeah. Um,
I have that box set.
yeah. This is one of those things. Part one, which is 16 minutes and 38 seconds. It used to get played on KC 95, the semi famous rock station in St. Louis, Missouri, back in the 70s. It was one of those perfect DJ bathroom or joint breaks or whatever they needed a break for back then. And the main man, of course, is Roy Albrighton, the late Roy on guitar and lead vocals. Yeah,
Yeah.
he is very much missed. Um, and they
Yeah.
did a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah. Yeah. I have
At one point, we'll go more in depth on this album. I know we've discussed this as a future show. So,
we will be doing that. I
yeah.
also have received I have the Esoteric Records box set, you know, reissue of Remember the Future and of Recycled. I got on Sunday actually. So yeah, fantastic choice. And that track, Remember the Future Part One, is featured on my favorite Sidelong Epic Tracks episodes that had by the time this aired, you would have seen that already. So okay. Good
It's like
choice.
being in a time machine.
Good choice. Good choice. We must carry on, ladies and gentlemen. Staying with Jan Ackerman, my next choice is Focus with Eruption from Moving Pictures, or Focus 2 from 1971. Eruption takes up all of side 2, which Thies van Leer wrote a majority of the pieces for that. I guess it's like 15 sections of that sidelong epic track. I think Jan Ackerman wrote one piece. A lot, again, a lot of use of organ, Hammond organ, uh, guitars, fantastic harmony guitars from Jan Ackerman. He uses a lot of harmonics on his guitar leads. And at one point, there's also, uh, I call it kind of like choir chanting for the vocals. But again, just it's beautiful. It's epic in some spots. It's quiet, very sort of subdued with piano sections in other spots. Again, takes up all of side 2 of Moving Waves or Focus 2. 23 minutes and change. Check it out. Just amazing. Again, this is also featured on my Sidelong Epic Tracks episode. So there you go. Go back and check it out if you can.
Good
There
choice.
you
It's right
go.
in this particular stack right behind me.
There you
It almost
go.
went on the wall.
There you go. There you go. So that's my next one. Oh, back over to Bill.
All right. All right. This one I have discussed previously when we were doing our best albums of the 90s series. Um, this is Shadow Gallery from their debut, and it is The Queen of the City of Ice.
Okay.
But keeping track of the length here, we're up to 17 minutes and 9 seconds now.
Hmm.
As I've said previously on the other episodes, Shadow Gallery is essentially a modern progressive metal band, vaguely along the lines of Dream Theater, but not really. That's just kind of to give you an idea of the territory they're working in.
Yeah.
They're much more gothic, much more uh, almost classical influences. I'm talking like minstrel balladry kind of sounds. That's kind of the vibe I get on some of this stuff. Queen of the City of Ice has cheesy but effective spoken word sections. It tells a story. It really is about the Queen of the City of Ice. This guy who falls in love with his queen, and it has a tragic ending. But yeah, you have to check it out to get the whole story. It's if you like good over the top, almost stereotypical prog stories, this is that kind of thing. But
Okay.
it's a whole lot of fun. It have great harmony vocals on here, excellent guitar playing, and it's yeah, very nice. If any of that sounds remotely up your alley, Shadow Gallery is worth checking out. Queen of
Yeah.
the City of Ice.
I'm gonna check that out too. Again, I got a lot to check out. Coming up next for me on the list is Steve Hackett with Ace of Wands from Voyage of the Acolyte, his debut solo album done in 1975. This was during a time where the band were on break after doing the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tour. Peter Gabriel left the band. This is considered to be the missing Genesis album that never was, basically, and that pretty much is. The whole album is largely instrumental, a lot of use of symphonics on this album, but Ace of Wands just starts off at a breakneck tempo in terms of intricate drum passages and guitar passages. Just frenetic pace, just nuts. Fantastic guitar work. I don't know why Genesis, I know Tony Banks, let's not go there, did not want Steve Hackett to contribute more. Phil Collins is also featured on percussion and on vocals on some of the tracks. And Michael Rutherford is also featured on as songwriter and instrumentalist on this album. So yes, it is the missing Genesis album. I'm sorry, the long forgotten Genesis album or whatever you want to call it. Fantastic piece of work. So that's my next one. Steve Hackett, Ace of Wands, Voyage of the Alkalite.
I agree with pretty much all that. That's right there behind me on the shelf.
There you
Good
go.
choice.
There you go.
Love Hackett. Top
There you
five
go.
player for me.
There you
Uh,
go.
all right. The next two choices here, I'm gonna try not to get too in depth because this isn't really a politics and social issues channel, but these songs absolutely have subject matter and lyrics which would perhaps piss certain people off big time. So be forewarned.
Okay.
The first one is by Marillion, who most people watching this are probably aware of Marillion in general.
Hmm.
This they had a couple hits in the '80s with their singer Fish, Kaylee and Lavender, and then of course they replaced Fish with Steve Hogarth, also known as simply H. And Steve visited Palestine. In fact, this was 2012 when this
Hmm.
came out. He talked to people throughout Israel, throughout Palestine, throughout Gaza, and actually wrote a song called Gaza on this album, Sounds That Can't Be Made.
I have it. Yeah.
And he was bold enough to tell this story from the eyes of a Palestinian child. And it's very effective. And I'm getting choked up. So I'm not going to go too in depth. I'm saying
Okay.
it's obviously very still timely to this day. No matter what your thoughts are in the situation, this is a damn powerful song. And it deserves to be heard again, especially now more than ever.
Hmm.
Not to slight the band because they're great as always, but yeah, this is really about H and his story and his lyrics and his vocal performance and everything. So yeah,
Okay.
whatever you might think about it, check it out. Gaza by Marillion.
Yeah, I have that album. I need to listen to it again. Good choice. Good choice. My next choice is IQ with IQ, neo progressive rock band from the UK with the track Until the End, which from the album The Road of Bones. This is a concept album. I have the double edition. It's a story about a serial killer who basically knows he's killing people and that it's wrong, and he doesn't care. He is going to do it until he is satisfied and just stop. And you don't need, and just quickly, you don't need to try and understand his mind and why he did what he did. He knows it's wrong and he just does not care. Well, this ends off disc one of the special edition version. And vocal, one of those days, lyrically, he's saying to a girl that he's interested in, will you stay with me until the end? Even though I know what I'm doing is wrong and repulsive, but I just do not want to stop. You can try and tell me, that I need to go for help, but I don't need help. I know what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing, but will you accept what I'm doing and stick with me if I do get caught and until the end? And you know what? It's a hell of a track, and it's a hell of a subject matter lyrically. So you really need to check this album out as a whole, The Road of Bones. But yeah, you got to ask yourself, how many out there, think about it. How many of you out there, sorry, it's been one of those mornings. How many of you out there would literally have this situation happen? What would you do? Would you stick with the person? Would you turn them in? Would you turn your back on them? You got to think about that. So it's my
Man,
next choice.
we both got pretty dark there, didn't we?
Oh, I know. The light is coming. The light is coming, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
Yes. Yes. Was that?
Spock's beard delight.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Spock's beard. Okay.
No, that's a great one too, but it's not here. That's
Okay.
all right. My next one is also very political. This also has a Roy Stoke connection because he was one of the founding members of this band, but he was no longer with them by this point. He only lasted two or three albums before he left. He had a habit of doing that, joined a bunch of bands and then took off after a couple albums. And
Hmm.
this is The Tangent. The main man here is and always has been Andy Tillison, also known as Andy Tillison Disc Drive. who is a multi instrumentalist, primarily keyboards, but on here he also plays drums, which some criticize because he's not really a drummer, but
Mm-hmm.
he does well for not being a drummer. And he is, of course, the primary vocalist, and he has a very distinct voice. But it's very clear. You can understand his lyrics, and that's important because he's a pretty smart, clever kind of guy, and he writes some interesting lyrics. This is a few steps down the wrong road, and it's from this album, The Slow Rust of Forgotten Machinery, which is
Okay.
subtitled, or Where Do We Draw the Line Now? And the artwork, I don't know how you can see this, is written, or excuse me, was by Mark Buckingham, who is probably most known as the artist on the comic book Fables, which I'm a big fan of. I have all of them.
Okay.
It's excellent. You get the idea. There's more. You
Okay.
can see some of the faces there. This came out in 2017, as I said. Um, I'll just say if you're a fan of folks like Boris Johnson or Donald Trump, you probably might not like this song's message.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to get into anything other than that, but it is a an interesting lyric in that it takes you one way as far as you can tell, and then by the end, there's a bit of a twist. But
Okay.
I'm not going to spoil it. This also has Theo Travis, who's well known in the modern Prague community. He's worked with Steven Wilson, of course, among many others, and Jonas Reingold, who I did not mention when I talked about Kipa earlier. Along with
Mm.
Roy Stote, he was also in in Kipa and still is. He's been there for every modern Kipa album, and he's still in the Flower Kings. If you hear bass in a modern progressive rock song over the last 30 years, it's probably Jonas Reingold.
Okay.
He's just that ubiquitous. He is the man,
Yeah. Yeah.
including his own band, Car Mechanic. So yeah, spelled Karma, Canic. Yeah, but yeah, if you're not adverse to some very in your face political lyrics that you may or may not agree with,
Okay.
basically this is excellent, as Andy Tillison's Tangent albums always are.
Hmm.
So check it out. And yeah, I recommend getting the album just because this is one of those, if you can get the album, meaning the record, of course, as opposed to the CD, just because the artwork is
Yeah, the
so
artwork is
incredible looking.
fantastic on it. Yeah. Okay. That's a good choice. My next choice, we're going to Canada for this one. FM from the album Black Noise with the track Phasers on Stun. FM trio from Toronto featuring Nash Slash and Cameron Hawkins on keyboard, bass, and vocals, Nash Slash on guitar and violin. Black Noise was released in 1977, first on CBC Records, and then through Esoteric later on re-releases and stuff. Fantastic, uh, progressive slash epic in terms of space rock kind of a feel. You kind of feel like you're on a flight when you're listening to this, right? You got the headphones on, and you hear the guitar come in on the track, and it's just kind of it pans from left to right, and then you're just off and running with the drums, and it's just very sort of spacey. Uh, Again, progressive rock, just fantastic. Not overly long. It's just something like 4.5 minutes, but it's not the length of the track. It's what's within the production and the arrangement of the track. So that's my next choice. I've always loved this track. You can get this on, again, Esoteric reissues. They were released through, I believe, Passport Records at one point with this album through the 80s. They kind of lost their way in terms of progressive rock. They went into more pop, but this is still a fantastic, underrated progressive rock album from the late 70s. FM Phases Unstunned from Black Noise.
Yeah, they're another one of those very peripheral bands that the people who love them a lot, and everybody else is like, I need to get around checking them out eventually.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
that's kind of where I'm at. I'm still in the I need to get around to checking them out phase with
Yeah,
FM.
yeah. No, I know. I
All
know.
right. Next up, we have a second one that actually was one I mentioned in our 90s top albums. But this is by someone who had been around much longer than that, Frank Zappa from Civilization Phase 3, uh, the last album he completed in his lifetime.
Mm,
And the track is In Light. That's letter N dash Lite. And it is 18 minutes. And it is an instrumental played on the synclavier. Some people may go running for the hills when they hear that. Some people hate that stuff. I do not. Zappa made great use of the technology that was available at the time.
hmm.
And his compositional skills at this point were peaking, I think. I mean, he did not lose any skills as he aged. He just moved on to other things. He moved on beyond what people were expecting of them. He wasn't going to play, Yellow Snow or Inca Roads over and over ad infinitum.
Yeah.
That's good. That's artists grow, artists change, and he certainly did. So, if you're looking to take a journey, just turn the lights out, kick back, turn it up, close your eyes, and let it carry you away.
There you go. That's a good way to describe it. Next up for me is Saga with The Perfectionist from their debut album Saga from 1978, released April 8th of 1978 with Polydor Records. The Perfectionist is basically a progressive rock waltz type of track. Starts off side two with fantastic keyboard work from Peter Rosen, the original keyboardist for Saga, who left the band after the release of the debut album. Fantastic work from Steve Negus on drums. Epic. Basically tells the story of Ellery Sneed, who had one great need to do everything just right. If things were not done by hand and all well planned, he would ready himself for a fight. Those are the actual lyrics from the leadoff verse. Basically, and again, I apologize for the dogs barking. It tells a story about this gentleman who wants to plan his death to the letter. And he also wants to take people along with him by poisoning the wine he decides to serve at the end of a dinner he was going to hold. So I guess he thought, you know what, if I'm going to die, I'm taking you on with me. This track, although it was never released as a single, was a big hit in Latin America. You really need to check it out. Starts off again, side two of the album. Epic and not so much in length, it's about almost 6 minutes, over 6 minutes, I believe. But just in its arrangement and production, amazing. So you really need to check it out. The Perfectionist from the debut album of Saga. Check it out.
Very nice. This saga is well worth checking out.
Yeah.
And it's Canadian content, so that's two
Yes.
in a row Canadian content for you there. That's probably
Yes.
what the dogs were barking about there. Bravo.
Yeah. Yeah. And also home care here. So
Oh,
yeah.
well, we'll rush through this then.
Okay.
All right, my next one is not really a prog band, but they have been uh, very noticed over the years by progressive rock fans, particularly with their albums The Crane Wife and The Hazards of Love. But this is a single track EP called The Tane by the Decemberists.
Okay.
The instrumentation is very Americana, but there's also piano, Rhodes, Wurlitzer, Hammond, accordion, glockenspiel, various types of percussion, upright bass, blah, 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 lap steel, mandolin, a little bit of everything.
Okay.
It sounds nothing like Close to the Edge or Supper's Ready or anything like that. Just think Americana prog. And of
Perfect.
course, Colin Malloy is a very literate lyricist and
Perfect.
likes to revive the old English. So, yeah, Detained by Decemberists.
Perfect. That's a good one. I gotta check that out too. My second to last choice on the list, and I do have to get through this list because I got people waiting for me. I'm sorry, guys. It's been one of those mornings. Pink Floyd with Echoes from Metal takes up all of side two of Metal, released in 1971. It's 23 minutes and change. One of the few tracks that's co-written by all members of the band. It is experimental rock, it is prog, it is funk, it is just out there. Takes up all of side two again, 23 minutes in length. Please check it out. That's my next choice.
Right.
Your
Excellent
last
choice.
one?
This is also not a prog artist at all, but this song is epic. It's 18 minutes 45 seconds, multi-part suite, tells a story. It is the Song of Crazy Horse by J.D. Blackfoot.
Okay.
He was very well known in the 70s again on KC 95 in St. Louis. He was big around the whole area here. And
Okay.
yeah, this is mostly traditional instruments, rock instruments, but it also has sax and organ tossed in, little bits that.
Hmm.
Yeah, obviously it's a story about Crazy Horse.
Yeah.
It's quite a lovely song. So if you're looking for something that's not obvious prog, but is in fact very proggy in a different way, JD Blackfoot, the Song of Crazy Horse.
Perfect. My last choice, I guess my number one choice for this list is, again, Start the Hate right now. Queen with the March of the Black Queen from Queen 2. Released in 1974, Queen's second album, originally going to be titled Over the Top. This track clocks in at 6 minutes and like 35 seconds, 11 parts to this epic piece. You have harmony vocals, you have descending vocal passages and ascending keyboard passages and intermingled. You also have polymetric and polyrhythm time signatures being played on this track. I think it's 8, 12, and 12 time signatures, very intricate. And you also have the very epic sounding vocal a cappella section that starts off piece of the track. When they did this track and they were just kept adding sections to it, the tape, when it went through the machine over and over again, almost was translucent. They were losing pieces of music because they kept going over, doing overdubs and bouncing, overdubs and bouncing. So people have called this prog. People have called this prog-esque. I do think of this as a prog track. Again, if you don't agree, then start the hate right now. I'm used to it. So,
Hate
anyways,
here.
yes, and he has a pillow. So there you go. So there you go, guys. Our top 10 top 30 epic, sorry, prog tracks for part two. We will be back with part three momentarily. We do need to take a break as I have, circumstances beyond my control happening outside my bedroom doors. So we will be back. I want to thank Bill Schuster for assisting me on this. We hope you found something interesting to listen to and something new. And again, click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. Again, we will be back with part three of our top 30 prog tracks. Again, look after yourselves and one another. I'm Armando Venditti. For Mr. Bill Schuster, we are signing off for now. We will be back momentarily. Bye for now.